I really don't understand why people are so shocked and aghast that Logan Paul went the distance with Floyd Mayweather. Mayweather is 44 years of age, hasn't fought in a long time, and he was going up against somebody who was massively bigger than him. I mean, the size difference was absolutely insane. I don't know what it was in terms of height, but it was a lot. It was a lot in terms of reach, and it was a lot in terms of body mass. And he was fighting somebody who was, 20 years younger than him? Something like that, 18 years younger than him, and who's an athlete. And although he may just be a YouTuber who has turned his hand to boxing and had a few fights which would be akin to like white collar fights, he's still somebody of the dimensions and the physicality that Floyd Mayweather has never encountered before in certainly a professional boxing ring, although this was an exhibition. And Logan Paul was in there to survive. So when you're a 44-year-old man who has been extremely inactive, who's been retired basically, and you're in there against an athlete, because Logan Paul is an athlete. He may not be a proper boxer, but he's an athlete. He's somebody who was very athletic in school and college and whatever. You can see he's in tremendous condition. So he's an athletic guy, a strong guy, much physically bigger than Floyd, much stronger. When somebody like that wants to survive, which is what Logan Paul was doing after, let's say, 2 rounds, he just was in there to survive. He was doing a lot of holding, a lot of leaning, moving around, very negative. It's going to be very difficult for a guy of Floyd's dimensions, particularly at his age, to be able to get him out of there. So I don't see it as something shocking at all. What, was Floyd supposed to go in there and chin Logan Paul in 2 rounds? That just sounds totally unrealistic to me. Oh, he got rid of Conor McGregor. The Conor McGregor fight was longer than this, and Conor McGregor's not as big as Logan Paul, and Conor McGregor actually tried to win. Or at least tried to win for longer than Logan Paul tried to win. You know what I mean? Later on, Conor McGregor was kind of holding on a little bit. When a guy just wants to survive and he's big and much bigger and much stronger than you, and Logan Paul's much stronger than Floyd Mayweather physically. I know Mayweather was pushing him back and all that kind of stuff, but that's more because of fatigue and technique and Logan Paul not wanting to get hit with stuff. But if you're talking about who can lift more in a wrestling contest, who's going to win, it's going to be Logan Paul. This is a man way bigger than Floyd Mayweather's ever faced in a pro ring. So again, why people were shocked. Oh my gosh, Mayweather couldn't get him out of there. Come on. Look at the size difference between them. So, and Mayweather's never been a pressure fighter. He's a boxer. Yeah, he can apply pressure, and he did apply pressure in this fight, but it's not like a Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was a pressure fighter his whole career. So when he had to overcome a sizable height and reach disadvantage, he was like a duck to water. That's what he's been doing his whole career. That's what he was trained for. That's what his whole style is about. Mayweather's style's not about that. This is why I always felt Tommy Hearns would have a very good chance of beating Mayweather, because similar height and reach to Logan Paul. Obviously a lot more skilled, a lot faster, hit definitely harder. Particularly at 154, I think he would have been a serious problem for Floyd, because how would Floyd actually get close to him? He's got a laser beam of a right hand, a tremendous jab, great body puncher. And he's going to be able to hit Floyd with a lot more than Logan was able to hit him with, because he's more skilled, faster, and he's a real boxer. Floyd, I don't think, has the pressure fighting skills. He's a tremendously skilled fighter, but pressure fighting is not Floyd's forte, never has been. Obviously, they're different weight categories, but Mike Tyson is a way more skilled pressure fighter than Floyd Mayweather is. Mayweather's a much better long-range boxer. Much better lateral movement, moving around the ring and all that kind of stuff. There are many areas in which Floyd Mayweather is superior to Mike Tyson, but pressure fighting is not one of them. Mike Tyson's way better at pressure fighting than Mayweather has ever been. And there are plenty of other fighters who are better pressure fighters than Mayweather is. So not only is he fighting a guy massively bigger than him, way younger than him, literally young enough to be his son, but he's also having to fight a pressure style, going up against someone who outreaches him. He's never been in there with anyone with longer arms than him. De La Hoya was listed as having a longer reach, but reach and arm length are different things. If you look at the arm length measurements that HBO showed when Mayweather was still fighting on their network, for De La Hoya and for Mayweather, Mayweather actually had longer arms than De La Hoya. There may have been one or two other people, but it was extremely unusual for Mayweather to fight somebody that had longer arms than himself. So he actually relied to some degree on the arm length. Obviously, with all the skills involved, he had loads of skills and knew how to use those long arms, but it's still an unusual situation for him to be outreached in a fight. And so that's another thing he had to cope with here. Logan Paul will have been hit way harder in sparring than Mayweather hit him in the fight. So in terms of knocking Logan Paul out, what, you really think a guy this small is going to be hurting Logan Paul with his shots? Like, he would have had to have caught him with an awful lot of punches, clean shots, to be able to take him out. And the way Logan Paul was wrapping him up, he was never able to put those kind of shots together. So it's not shocking that he went the distance with this YouTuber. I know the way people frame it, he went the distance with a YouTuber, this is shocking. Yeah, but he's not just any old YouTuber, is he? He's a guy that is actually an athlete, physically strong, who's had some fights before, who's had a level of training which your average YouTuber is not going to have. And he does have some ability. He's not as good as his brother Jake, but he does have some type of rudimentary boxing ability. So, yeah. Long story short, this is not a shock or anything like that. I really don't know what people were expecting. Are people hanging on to a belief that Mayweather could maybe come back and face some of the top welterweights around now? Is that why people were shocked by how well Logan Paul did in terms of being able to survive the distance? To be honest with you, this doesn't take away from how Floyd would do against today's current crop of top welterweights. I think he was too old to be taking on the top welterweights back when he fought McGregor. So the Jake Paul thing doesn't make any difference to me. He wasn't going to be able to come back and face Spence back when he fought McGregor. That's my take on it. Let me know your take in the comments below. As far as the fight itself, it was fun. And that's what Mayweather said after the fight. Logan Paul also said it was a privilege and an honor to share the ring with Mayweather, and he actually loves Mayweather, and he was basically acting before the fight and behaving like the bad guy and doing all the trolling. That's how he makes his money, as a professional troll. So he plays a character. He's a character playing a part. He understands how to trigger people, and that equals views and ratings, and that's all he was doing in the lead up to the fight. Mayweather understands that because he does it himself. So it was two guys doing all that, and after the fight, Logan had a tremendous amount of respect for Mayweather. So, yeah, it was a fun little exhibition between one of the best fighters in the past couple decades against a professional troll YouTuber who's been very successful doing what he does. It is what it is. Boxing has always had these type of fights. So it's not like it's something new. It's not indicative of boxing is dying and all this kind of nonsense. No, boxing is not dying. Well, let me say boxing is not. Boxing, the economy in most countries around the world has taken a massive hit. And that is obviously going to impact on boxing. But it's not because of lack of interest in the sport that there'll be any residual impact on boxing. No, it's because of other events in the world, right? So this type of event, Mayweather versus Logan Paul, these things have been happening forever in the sport of boxing. back in the 70s when Ali fought the wrestler. George Foreman fought how many guys in one night? Was it 5 guys in one night? They've been doing this stuff forever. It is what it is. I'll finish up by saying it was great to see everybody's faces. The referee, the corner team, everybody's faces. You could see all their faces. It was great to see. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below about this fight, about this event. And I'll catch you on the next video. Oh, and sorry, I'm sure, before I go, I'm sure some people are going to ask me if I saw the Jarrett Hurd fight. I only saw like the last few rounds. Maybe I'll watch the fight and give you guys a proper review. But all I can tell you is I've never been impressed by Jarrett Hurd. I did post-fight reviews when he fought Jason Wellborn. I think also when he fought Julian Williams, when he fought Lara Trout. So I had done post-fight reviews for several of his fights before. And in those fight reviews, which are still up on my channel, go back and watch them, I was saying I'm not impressed with this guy. When he was unified champion, it's not like he had loads of fanboys or anything, but there were a few people in the comments saying, wow, you're being very negative, and he's just beat somebody here. Hatman, he's just beat Lara, and he's just done, and I was like, yeah, but he just looks like a weight bully to me. You know the way Chavez was at middleweight? He was able to beat some of the contenders in the top 10 and whatever at middleweight, but he was just a weight bully. There was no real ability there. And with Jarrett Hurd, I'm not saying he's as poor as Chavez Jr., but it's a similar kind of situation when he was at 154, where he was just a giant guy bearing down on much smaller men who were very skillful, but they couldn't overcome the size difference. And I'm not saying Jarrett Hurd has no ability whatsoever, but when you're talking about top flight fighters, Jarrett Hurd is very slow, he's very basic, and he's always been unbelievably easy to hit. His defense is shockingly bad. And this is something I just couldn't understand when he was champion at 154 and people were talking him up. I said, how can you be impressed by someone? He's entertaining to watch, don't get it twisted. Very entertaining. But how can you be impressed by a guy who gets hit so much? How can you think he's this really great fighter when he gets hit this much? And I said repeatedly when Jarrett Hurd was champion at 154 that both Charlos would absolutely smoke this guy. That they would light this guy up like a Christmas tree. In fact, I think that's one of the first times I started using that phrase, that saying, light you up like a Christmas tree, is when I was talking about how Jarrett Hurd would fare against Charlo. I said, Charlo will light this guy up like a Christmas tree. This guy's defense is horrible. And Charlo, you know, he's just a weight bully that's getting by on being big. Well, Charlo's big too. So when he goes up against someone like that, he's not going to be able to bully them with the extra strength, and his horrendous defense, I mean, there is no defense there, is going to be brutally exposed. And so in this fight with Luis Arias, I only caught, as I say, the last few rounds of the fight. As usual, Jarrett Hurd was getting lit up like a Christmas tree. I mean, I remember when he fought Jason Wellborn. Wellborn was touching him up in that fight. So Arias was spinning this guy's head around like the wheel of fortune. It was a competitive fight, don't get it twisted. But yeah, Hurd did not impress me, as usual. So I'll leave that there. Maybe I'll do a full review if I manage to catch the whole fight. Come and join me on Patreon and access my weekly no-holds-barred, censorship-free podcast where we lift the lid on a wide range of controversial topics. It's not mainstream friendly, it's not politically correct, but that's the whole point. We dare to stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Hot Topics. You'll gain access to a minimum of 2 hours of exclusive content every single week, including podcasts, videos, interviews, live stream Q&A sessions, as well as my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Not to mention a vast back catalog of hundreds of hours of previous episodes. You can listen via the Patreon app with the option to download in high quality MP3. We've also got a Discord server where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. There's no contract, no commitment, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.